Are you afraid of the dark? Are you scared? I am you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our show, Haunting the Afterlife Radio. I'm your host, Susie, and with me are my fabulous fellow hosts, Brian and Christina. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm fabulous as always. I'm very excited for tonight's show. What about you, Christina?
Oh yeah, I'm super excited.
All
I
right.
I love this because we've been doing research all week, and I'm like, I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop.
Yes, we've all been working very hard the last week, gathering all research and info for you guys. So, for tonight, who is ready to be terrified? Because we are about to discuss one of the country's most haunted, the infamous Sallie House. Does it really hold up to its reputation as being one of the most terrifying locations in the country? Find out soon. But first, a few things. I want to mention very quickly just be respectful in chat to the fellow chatters and your hosts. And please make sure if you've got questions, please put those in caps so we can see them. And that's about it for that. And I do believe that Brian's got some disclaimers real quick.
The views and the opinions expressed on Haunting the Afterlife Radio are those of the various authors, websites, chat room participants, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Haunting the Afterlife Radio, Haunting the Afterlife host, or any affiliation or affiliated with the aforementioned entities. Any content provided by bloggers, authors of websites are of their own opinion and not intended to malign any religion, ethnic groups, clubs, organizations, companies, individuals, or anyone or anything. I do have to also say viewer discretion is advised. Some pictures are kind of graphic in nature. And also, I want to put out there um, a page thanking all of our um,
Sources.
websites where we grabbed our information at. And so we're not being, can't be accused of plagiarism. Um, so,
Thank you for all that, Brian, for getting that all together. Especially our sources and everything. And I will be putting those in chat as well as we go along. Well, mine, I'll be putting my sources. So guys, I want to say if any of you have been to the Sallie House, please feel free to talk about those experiences here in chat. We'd love to hear about them. And also, like I said, if you got any questions, please let us know. We'd love to hear those questions. The three of us have never been to the Sallie House, but The reason why we decided to do that is because one of us will be going there soon, and that is Christina. Right, Christina?
Yes, we will be making that trip in July, probably mid-July is what we're thinking. We were going to make it in May, but with a lot of our jobs, we have inventories and such things like that, so we had to push it back to July. So, but we're pretty excited, and we'll be going live, of course, and it's only like 5 hours from me, so it's really close for me. I wish we could all meet up there.
I know. I'm super jealous because, I'm like 2,000, 3,000 or something miles away, and I'm probably never going to be able to go there. I mean, never say never, but I'm glad you're going to get to go there. And yes, please do go live. I think your service should be okay because I know that Ghost Hunts USA did go there and they had pretty good service to go live, so you should be fine with that. But yeah, has this looking into it the last week, doing all this research, do you feel like this is helping your near future investigation, or do you think it's giving you too many, perceptions? Um,
I normally do the research in our group anyway, but the last location I did not do much. I don't think it affected. I don't know if it's going to affect me. I'm going to go in there with a clear, open mind and kind of just throw all this out that we've, researched on, because that's what you have to do when you go into locations anyway. You got to go in a place with a clear, open mind, and so hopefully I don't. Hopefully I just go in and do my own thing and don't even think about it.
Now, do you guys have a certain pieces of equipment that you're going to be using for this particular investigation?
Yeah, we have, of course, the audio recorders, and then we have the 8 digital cam or webcam cameras that we use, the night owl version, and we'll have them set up all night. And by that time, we may end up having 4 more cameras, so that way we can expand. But that Sallie's house is it's not that greatly big, so we're not too worried about that. And then, basically our audio recorders, we really don't use much of anything else. I mean,
no fancy stuff like a Geo box or SLS or nothing.
Well, we have an SLS, but you know how it's hard to use anything like that because, doorways and things like that, it picks up on certain stuff like that. The K2 meter, I mean, you can put that in any home depending on, it goes off refrigerators and stuff. So we take them and we'll set them up in a live feed, but we really don't use them as evidence. So.
Okay. All right. So kind of how we're going to work the show is we're going to start with Brian. He's going to give us a little, kind of like some history, some factual history about the house. Then we're going to move into Christina. She's going to also give some historical facts and then also talk a little bit about some reviews, maybe some information about like how much it costs to go there, that kind of stuff. And then after break, I'm going to start talking about the paranormal experiences and also footage that I have found during my research. So we're going to have lots of pictures for you guys, and it's just going to be a really good time. So let's go ahead and, really quick, I want to let you guys know that I do have my 5-year-old daughter sitting right next to me. So you might hear her sometimes, but she's going to be a big girl and try to be as quiet as she can, but just so you guys know. So let's go ahead and get some historical facts on this place, right?
Okay. The land itself was purchased by Michael C. Finney um, in 1866. And between the years of 1867 and 1871, the the house was built, and the Finney family moved in and made it their home. For nearly a century, a Finney has either lived in the house or owned the property. It's believed that the Finney family lived first in the basement while the rest of the house was being completed. By 1871, the family was more than likely living in the house itself. On September 22nd, 1872, Michael C. Finney passed away at the house at 10 p.m. He left behind his wife, two sons, a daughter, and one son on the way. May 25th, 1873, Richard Edwin was born to the late Michael Finney and his wife, Kate. Edwin joined his father on September 29th, 1874. Kate Finney's father, Charles Catharines Sr., also died that year on July 14th. After the death of his father, James, the eldest son built a house next door to where they were living at, and that was built in 1879. I do believe there is a photo that's going around that shows the land plots. June 2nd, 1880, James and his friend Andy Welt returned from a trip from Gunnison, Colorado. Both vowed never to return to that godforsaken place. They'd gone to Colorado to find their riches, only returned a short time later with nothing much to show for their troubles. In 1881, James deeded his house to his mother and moved to St. Louis, Missouri. That's where he started working as a city salesman for the L.M. Rumsey Manufacturing Company, which dealt in hardware and plumbing supplies. 1882, Charles C. Finley became a collector, bookkeeper for Dr. Dan Holland, and later his office assistant. Charles decided to study medicine and was made at the suggestion of Dr. Holland, Charles Finley. He was called in the papers quite a figure skater, which was quite interesting. On December 27th, 1883, Charles Finney and Miss Florence Guerrero won a gold medal for the best couple skaters. For some reason, Charles fell out of favor in 1885 when they held another ice skating competition, and it was pointed out in the local papers that it was open to all gentlemen skaters except for Charles Finney. In his obituary, it was described as he was described as an expert skater, and it stated that he frequently dressed as a girl skater and appeared on ice builds as Miss Colby of Baltimore, skating so gracefully that few spectators knew of his true identity.
Wow.
Yeah. October 27th, 1887, Charles and a man named W.S. Anderson exchanged blows over an accusation Anderson made. Anderson had accused Charles of stealing his sister-in-law's pocketbook from a dental office. At the time the pocketbook disappeared, there were only two men in the office, Charlie Finley, and a stranger. Neither gentleman was accused at the time, but it wasn't until later that Anderson went to the dentist's office and accused Finney of taking the pocketbook. When Finney heard that he had been accused, he went to Anderson's store and asked him to retract his statement. Words were exchanged, and Finney struck Anderson over the head several times with a heavy cane. Anderson's father, who was present at the time, drew a revolver. Finney was not arrested at that time because Anderson feared that he would press charges. Finney would have his father arrested in retaliation. Next day, both Finney and Anderson were arrested for disturbing the peace and fined $10. In 1894, Charles received his medical degree from Beaumont Hospital Medical College, St. Louis. Now it's called the St. Louis University Medical School. Upon his return from medical college, Charles opened his office in the Martin Building at 5th and Commercial. During his long practice, he was associated with Dr. William Bogle and Dr. Virgil Morrison, and for several years before his retirement with his son. On June 26, 1899, the house next door to James had been built. It was deeded to a woman named Johanna Barnes. Johanna was a recently divorced mother of 3 with another child on the way. Prior to her moving into the house, Johanna had been institutionalized in the state hospital in Topeka for mental instability. On July 13th, 1899, Johanna's son, Frank Wright Barnes, was born. February 18th, 1900, James K. Finley died at 10 p.m. at the Evergreen Hospital in Leavenworth, Kansas. He had been in the hospital for 8 or 9 months, suffering from psoriasis of the brain. In 1904, on November 9th, Charles Finney married Louise Zeibold, daughter of Herman and Rosa Zeibold. And in 1905, they moved into the house that they had built on the other side of his childhood home. So at this time, the Finneys actually had 3 houses all there together. And the so-called Sallie House was right in the center.
And during my research, I did read that actually it's been said that the house directly next door is even more haunted than Sallie House is, which I found was interesting.
Well, some of the research that I did and everything really didn't talk too much about the area as far as being haunted. And what was really strange is the hauntings, if it weren't reported until the 90s.
Yes, that's true. What else was I going to ask you? Sorry, my daughter's interrupting me here. But
But I need you.
hang on. Go ahead, Bri. I gotta address her really quick.
And it kind of, I'm wondering what this land was prior to the city being founded in this location. That is Indian territory. So I wonder if it could have been possibly an Indian settlement or where a battle had taken place at, but I couldn't find any information dealing with that.
I actually did find some, and it was native territory. And I'll talk more about this later during my segment of the show, but there has been sightings of people seeing Native American people there in the yard, in the surrounding neighborhood of the Sallie House. Oh, I remember what I was going to say before my daughter interrupted me. Christina, we've had some comments from HRJ Paranormal. Can we talk about those really quick?
Yeah. He said, make sure you keep an eye on your equipment in the basement. It has a tendency to mess up down there. And then he said, my camera wouldn't work down there, and 2 other investigators had their SD cards wiped out down there. Also, in the basement was a very tall being. I captured his image in the reflection of the TV on the first floor.
Can you tell us what this being, like, could you describe this being to us? What did it look like? And there on the screen is, I believe that's the basement, which supposedly has a portal.
Well, it has that. Didn't they find that deal on the floor in the basement?
The pentagram?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just a picture of it. It doesn't really look like a pentagram anymore to me anyway, but yeah, the pentagram. Now, I think that was put there by the lady who moved in after Deb and Tony moved out. Well, actually, after Deb and Tony moved out, another family moved in with kids. They stayed there for a short while, and then when they moved out, a lady moved in who was involved with devil worshiping. So she was doing like animal sacrifices. And I think she is the one who actually put the pentagram there. And there's a picture of investigators using Ouija board that during my research, I watched a lot of videos on YouTube of investigators going in there with Ouija boards. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but
They
well, I think it had already gotten out that this was supposedly a haunted location that had a demon in it, and of course people always kind of put one and one together and everything and correlate demons with the Ouija board and stuff. So that's why I saw a lot of investigators going in there with Ouija boards and stuff. Not that I'm saying that this house has a demon in it or doesn't have a demon in it. I don't know. I've never been there. I would like to go one of these days. But yeah, I don't know how other people feel, and this is my own personal feelings, is I'm kind of tired of it always being jumped to demons. And you're seeing that a lot lately these days and everything. Everything's a demon. Everything's a demon. No, not everything is a demon, if there are any demons.
well, I do have something to say about that, but first I want to address HRJ Paranormal. They described the being that they saw being very tall, misshaped head, very long arms, about 3.5 length, maybe longer, not clothed. That's really creepy. It kind of reminds me of almost what I saw at the Goldfield Hotel, what we capture on video. Is that demon? I don't know. I mean, those kind of things, they look weird. They don't look human. So you want to automatically say that's not human. And it kind of makes horror movies come true, right? to see
Mhm.
something like that. But and as far as what HRJ was saying, also about tech equipment and stuff being drained and failing. I did find that as well in my research on experiences going on there. So yeah,
Yeah,
Christina,
but
really bring back up.
but we as investigators deal with that all the time, going into location and having the batteries drained on our camcorders or on our cameras, on our audio devices, um, audio being erased from our audio devices. I've
Yep.
had that, and these places weren't ever considered that had a demon in it. It's just, um,
Well, I
but
think how the whole demon thing
I
got
mean, we
started was because when Tony and Deb were living there, and then the show Sightings got interested and wanted to hear their story. Um, Tony felt like it was a demon because he was being scratched, and we'll show pictures of that later during my segment because I actually do have those pictures of all of his scratches. He was being scratched and he was actually bleeding on live camera. Now, whether that was set up by Sightings uh, to get ratings or whether it really happens, we'll never really know. But I do know that he asked to have an exorcism. And I think that's where all the demon stuff started because he had a priest come in and exorcise him. And during the exorcism, and I do have a picture of this, again, scratches all over appeared. Now, what I found interesting was the priest that came in to do the exorcism. He told Deb and Tony he did not feel it was demonic. He felt that it was a spirit, quote unquote, looking for attention. So, but I do feel like that's kind of how the demon stuff started. And in my research, I've actually seen certain videos and articles comparing it to Zach Bagans' quote unquote demon house. So, but yeah, I do agree with you, Brian. What do you think, Christina, about the whole demon?
I feel the same way, Brian, and yeah, you and Brian both do because like I've like read and read and read so much over the last week, probably a little bit longer than that, and nothing was the exorcism thing, and then also whenever Zach and then went in there, that was they probably blew it up about the demon thing after their show.
Oh yeah.
There was nothing that was really mentioned until then about it being a demon house. Oh, and by the way, they do not allow no Ouija boards or seances no more. If they catch you bringing in any type of Ouija boards or do anything like that, you will be immediately asked to leave.
That's a really interesting because the Goldfield Hotel has the same rules. They will not let you bring in a Ouija board or tarot cards or nothing. Do you guys, and I'm talking to chatters as well, like do you agree with that? I mean, do you like why do they do that? I mean, we can have this whole discussion about Ouija boards and how we feel about them, and that would be awesome because it always makes for a good conversation. But to me, a Ouija board is just like using an audio device or a pendulum or something, dowsing rods or whatever. I don't feel like I don't feel like it's going to bring the devil in. What do you guys think?
I myself don't know that much about how to use a Ouija board properly. So I actually won't use one.
Yeah, that's the same with us. We won't use one either. Because if you don't, they say that if you don't open it and close it properly, or if you don't close it properly, then that's when bad things can happen. But then Will says, makes the Ouija board, Christina? Who makes it?
Yeah, we got to remember that, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, well,
I mean, what's the difference between a Ouija board and just using like an audio device or using a pendulum or, whatever? HRJ says some people can't properly use the board. Bad things can happen if used improperly. And I think it could be the same. I think it could have the same result when you're using an audio device for an EVP session. Or if if you don't use it properly, um, then you're going to have the same kind of issues, I think.
yeah. Well, when you walk into the place, if you don't protect yourself in some way, you're opening yourself up to, just going there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And us doing the research on the place and knowing that it's not only the house, it's supposedly the, block and the blocks around it and things. Atchison, though, it's a pretty old town, and from what I've gathered, there's a lot of paranormal situations that's happened there.
Yeah, they do say it's one of the most haunted towns.
Yeah.
In the States. Mm-hmm.
Nikki said not everything is demonic. Well, yeah, that's true. And then HRJ said pushing too hard can have bad results as well. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to a little bit of the history of it. How did it become the Sallie House?
Yep.
Okay, the Sallie House was originally the residence of an Atchison physician. The doctor lived with his family in the upstairs of the house and used the first floor as his office, surgery room, examination room. As for that part right there, that has not been proven. He did actually have an office at 5th and Congress. So I'm not too sure about that. As the story goes, Sallie was a young girl about 6 years old who was brought into the doctor's office one day suffering from a grave illness. At the point, the storyline splits into two conflicting versions of what the illness afflicting the child was. One version indicates Sallie's distraught mother rushed her into the doctor's office one morning when her child was moaning in pain in her arms. The little girl had been up all night with a stomach ache and towards the morning had suddenly become severe. Ascertaining that the child was suffering from an acute appendicitis, the doctor quickly moved her to his surgical room and began preparing to operate to remove her inflamed appendix. The pale child was crying and clutching her abdomen. Her already frightened eyes became panic-stricken as she saw the doctor laying out his shiny line of scalpels and other surgical instruments, with her tormented mother standing helpless beside her. Sallie struggled as the doctor held her down on the surgical table while applying an anesthetic mask soaked in ether to her face. Sallie struggled slowly, but she was not only fully under yet when the effect of the ether, when the doctor picked up the scalpel and began to cut. Sallie screamed weakly and opened her eyes as the doctor made his incision, but the doctor would not stop his surgery for fear her appendix would burst. Before she closed her eyes for the last time, little Sallie gazed at her tormentor, the doctor, with fear and loath, and then she went limp. The surgery was to no avail. The child's appendix had burst, and she died a short time later on in the doctor's table. That's one of the stories. The other version is um, has little Sallie around 1905 or 1906 brought to see the doctor for a lung disorder, a mild respiratory problem that had worsened, and she was having trouble breathing. When she was brought to see the doctor, he was negligent and overlooked the seriousness of the condition. Shortly after, the child died from pneumonia, and the doctor moved from the house not long after her death. So there you have the two different stories. With all the research I have been doing on this, um, there is no death records or death certificates for a little girl ever dying at this location named Sallie. Um, However, there was a Sallie in reference to the house, but she wasn't a little girl, and she was of um, African descent or Afro American, um, and she was up in age. She was married for 16 years and had 14 children. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how the Sallie became so popular at this house and everything. Um, I know that there was a renowned psychic from um, with the Sightings television program,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that he felt the presence of a little girl named Sallie.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, nothing has ever been brought forward as in hard proof document that Sallie died there. There is no hard proof evidence that Dr. Finney was actually practicing medicine in his house.
What do you
So,
chatters think? Let us know if you've heard something different or if you've researched and you've seen something different than us. Personally, in my research, I was not able to go back before the sightings show and find anything about Sallie. I think it all started with the sightings show because with the sightings show is when they brought in the two psychics. They brought in what's his name, Peter James, I believe, and then they also brought in a lady named Barbara, and they both said that they felt a little girl named Sallie. But if you go before the sighting show, you can't find anything about a Sallie at all. So,
HRJ Paranormal said that some say that her name was announced in the kitchen to the husband one morning.
well,
Um,
I
I
what, go ahead,
Go
Brian.
ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say that he did see a little girl when he was in the kitchen that morning, getting his coffee or whatever. He saw a little girl. She looked, yeah, she looked evil or anything, and he was pretty shocked. Dropped his glass, and but it wasn't until the psychic started coming in and gave her a name. And then Tony started seeing or having nightmares about the little girl. And so to me, that's kind of how it all got started. So, and of course, rumor is now that the little girl is actually something sinister. It's not actually a little girl. It's actually a negative demon, whatever you want to call it, trying to pretend or appear like it's a little girl. But yeah, like I said, before the show sightings, before the psychics came in and said this and this and this, I couldn't find anything before that talking about anything about a Sallie related to the house. And I mean, Brian, like, yeah, you did all the historical research, and there was nothing ever about a Sallie. So,
Yeah.
Well, I have in my research, I looked up the addresses and things where people lived. And you know how the Sallie, she was 44 when she passed. Now, the same year that she passed, the Sallie's house address is at 508 North 2nd. The Sallie's house is. This Sallie Hall lived at 821 North 1st Street. It is exactly like 2 blocks up the road. Like, no. So, okay, you know how she had 14 children. And there was only, she passed away a week after her 3rd child. She had lost 11 children. Okay. So in some of the EVPs and things that I've read on that people have captured there, I'm wondering if Sallie wasn't one of her children.
I was just going to say the same thing, but Sallie, the Sallie at the Sallie House is a little white girl. This woman was a black lady.
Well, but how would they know that? Just by an EVP?
Well, by this going off of what the psychics were saying. Do you mean that she was a black lady, or that the little girl is white?
Yeah, because
yeah,
supposedly he was a doctor, and you know she lost a lot of children. But if she was going to see the doctor for her issues, then I'm pretty sure that's because back when I've looked at different, newspaper clippings and things, they all lived right there for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he was the Atchison, Kansas, doctor. And because if you look back, how many deaths were in that house? There was it was crazy on how many people died in that house.
Well, they also held a lot of funerals there.
Mm-hmm.
Too, supposedly. So, and that this is why this whole thing just becomes more puzzling and more puzzling the more you research it. It's like the more answers you get, the more questions you have about it. Like, who is Sallie? How did these two Sallies correlate? How is it a coincidence? Mm-hmm. I mean, it could just be a coincidence. And then back to the psychics. I'm not convinced there's something fishy going on with that show sightings, because when they had Peter James go in there and then he said, I pick up on a little girl, her name is Sallie, and then the sighting show took him to the cemetery, and out of all the graves he picks this one that doesn't have a name on it because it's so old. And then when they looked up the actual map of the plots and found out that Sallie was in fact buried there, but it was Sallie Hall, the older black lady. So weird.
Mm-hmm.
How did he know that there was a Sallie there? Did he do prior research before the sighting show?
And see, that's what because some of them shows say they do not do research.
I know.
Do a lot of research. I mean, yeah, I think there was research done, and I think that names were mentioned or whatever, and they just went with it.
That's kind of what I'm starting to think too. You never know. I mean, these shows say that the psychic comes in they come in blind, supposedly. But you don't know that for sure.
No.
What do you think, Bry?
Um, I, 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 I really and truly can't put my finger on what these shows do. I'm sure they do some little research on it. And one of the websites that I went to is the quote official Sallie House website. And you would think that the official Sallie House website would have um, all the correct information. Um, but doing research and finding um, records and stuff, things weren't adding up for me. And not saying that they're representing the house or their stuff, but every story has two sides. Um, Me telling a tell and you telling the tell of the same thing, we could actually tell it with different emphasis and stuff, and can change the story around. So I don't want to say that I'm taking everything right now with a grain of salt. Um,
And
but
we're not trying to say, guys, that the Sallie House is not haunted. We're
yeah,
just trying to
I'm
figure out.
yeah, that's the last thing I want to do is put my name and say no, this place is not haunted at all. It's all been just a figment of someone's imagination. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't know.
We just want to,
Um,
and we want to see, we want to try and figure out who's Sallie and how this all got started. And, you know, so if you chatters, I mean, what do you guys think? HRJ, I mean, who do you think Sallie is? What's your opinion on, I mean, you've been there. So, you know, let us know. But yeah, it's
and
very, very puzzling.
and the other thing that is kind of getting me is why didn't why did it only start happening in the early 90s? If Sallie passed away in the early 1900s, there have been more males in the house from the 1900s to 1990. Why not in that time did the paranormal start? Why just at 1992 or the early 90s? And then,
HRJ, go ahead, Bryce. Sorry.
oh no,
HRJ answered my question. He said, personally, I think she's a projection.
I I I think you're right on that. I think she is, and and you hear about people um, projecting poltergeists, dealing with having lots of negative emotions and everything, and formulating poltergeists that feed off of that. And yeah, so yeah, I think it could possibly very well be.
Well, I definitely agree with that too. Um, the only thing that really doesn't make sense to me is why everything happened to Tony. Why he seemed to be like, okay, so he moved in there, he started getting scratches and all this stuff, and then they even captured it on camera, and then he moves out, he goes to his new house, and he's fine. Nothing happens. And then he comes back to the house like 20 years or something later for another show, and automatically scratches start to appear on him again. Why is he the only one being like physically attacked like that? I mean, there have been so many investigators and just people, tourists going in that house, and nothing like that happens to them. Why was it just Tony? Is another really, really, really puzzling thing for me. But anyways, we got to get to Christina's segment of the show, because I know she did a lot of research and stuff, and she's going to talk a little bit about her part of the research, and then also some reviews, and then hopefully she can answer some questions about how much it is to do a tour there, and investigation and things like that.
Okay, so I found a list of some of the EVPs that people have got from the Sallie House. Most of these they've been heard more than like 3 times. That's why these were put on the website or whatever. But Brandon, there's a Brandon, they said that is there, a dominant adult male. He can be a bit testy at times, but he also has a sense of humor and he likes kids. Many of the pranks he does to people are done to make the children laugh. Then we have Charles Finney. Has an older sounding voice and sounds a bit feminine. He would dress as a female to enter into skate competitions. I suspect that when psychics pick up his alternative lifestyle, this might just be what they are referring to. He ran for and won the position of mayor, which he had to step down for when it was discovered he was supplying the Eagles Club with alcohol. Let's see. And that would have been the doctor. Mm-hmm. And then Frank Finney, he died September 23rd of 2006, which I thought was really odd because for some reason, 23rd on a lot of deaths of people that lived in that house and previously lived there. The 23rd is on at least 9 of them. Strange.
Yeah, that is weird.
He passed at the hands of his mother when she turned on the gas in the room they slept. Frank often says he is in the circle. We think they have the children sit in a circle in the upstairs bedroom at times to keep them together and structured. Far as I can tell, little Paul can never sit still that long, so he is an exception. So now that you said that there wasn't a Sallie, I thought this was strange. Ryan related to Sallie and would say he's in between 15 and 22 years old. He never says much, but they did catch that he had a slight accent, and this is why we finally asked if they were related. And then here they say they heard a Sallie. Mm-hmm. Or I guess she spoke or said she was Sallie. I believe at this time her last name is Matthews. I didn't get the chance to research that yet, but I'm going to. It says, we have been unable to confirm this. I have heard her say daddy, so I assume her dad is there. She is also related to Ryan. She is either Scottish or English descent, and so is Ryan. I believe that Sallie has what she feels as family members at the house. She didn't move with the Pickmans when they moved from the house. Sallie was fond of the Pickmans, both Tony and Deborah, and she would not have caused this trouble any harm. So there's people saying that they're getting EVPs from a Sallie. So, I don't know. It's wish-washy. And then, I never found a Wanda, and there's a Wanda that supposedly answers if you say her name. And I never read anything about a Wanda on nothing other than this right here.
I never heard nothing about a Wanda either. I did in my research though, there was one source that I did find, but it was mentioned very briefly about a prior resident living at the Sallie House before the Pickmans. And she did say that her daughter had an imaginary friend named Sally. So I guess I got to take back my statement about saying that before the show sighting. Well, actually, I think that was the show sightings where the prior resident came on. So no, I don't take it back. Anyways, yeah. So the show sighting said that there was a lady, a prior resident, who did say that there was an imaginary friend of her daughter's who's named Sally. So that I found was weird too.
What do you think, Brian?
This is quite interesting. HRJ Paranormal Adventures said the investigators that invited them to the house told me they were getting EVPs saying that they were going to hurt me before I arrived. And his next comment, 2 days later, after 2 days later, he came down, or they came down with Rocky Mountain tick fever, hand, foot, and mouth, and strep. They said coincidence, I think, though. That's actually quite interesting. I have actually heard of investigators that have become ill from locations and stuff. Well, Rocky Mountain tick fever, you can only get that from tick bites.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure about the hand, foot, and mouth, and strep. I know that can either be a viral or a bacterial infection in the back of the throat, which actually can be very detrimental. But yeah, I've actually heard of investigators even remote viewing actually have issues and from locations.
I've had some experiences, like with the Goldfield Hotel, and to be
Billy Lyon
specific,
said
there
Billy
was
Lyon Billy Lyon said there was a Sally Matthews living in Atchison in 1880.
I wonder how old she was.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to.
And I don't know how big this town was back in the 1800s, early 1900s. But there was, I know, at least 3 doctors that had a practice. And if the town wasn't that built, Billy said 28 years old in 1880, and she was from Missouri. But if it was a fairly small town, then most of the people would have used those doctors and stuff. So I wonder if Sallie Hall was a patient of Dr. Finney, either Dr. Finney, the older Finney, or the younger Finney, because they were both doctors. Charles C. and Charles H.
You mean the Sally Matthews?
Huh?
You mean Sally Matthews? You said Sallie Hall.
Right.
Or
Sallie
both.
Hall, or both, yeah. Because, like I said, in most small towns and everything, you only have a couple doctors. Not like today and everything, where you have 38 different specialists dealing with feet.
Now, there was an EVP of a Tom Burns as his name. Now he's either seen in a train uniform or a soldier uniform. That is the apparition that has been seen. The population as of 2010 was 11,000. I'm trying to find the population like back in the day, but I don't. Oh, here we go. 1890, there was 13,963.
That's a small little town.
It's actually declined. Like, yeah, it's declining every year for some reason. I don't know why.
All right, guys. Well, we gotta take
Yeah,
a break really quick. So
HRJ Paranormal said sadly they didn't get to investigate, but for a few hours. They had truck issues most of the way up there. I definitely like to try again. And Billy Lyon said my connection is bad, so I missed a few things. But a Sallie Hall died in childbirth in 1905. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Sallie Hall did die in childbirth. It was, she only had 3 surviving children out of 14. And she was a black lady. I'm not sure how she was involved in the Sallie House. The only thing I can think of is she was a patient of a Dr. Finney's.
Yeah, that's thinking too. What do you think, Susie?
I mean, 13,000 people. Yeah, that's a small town.
yeah, she was probably then connected in some way. I would imagine.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and head to break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Yep. See you guys in 5. You did. Welcome back, everybody, to Hunting the Afterlife Radio. We are having an amazing discussion about the Sallie House. So we've been talking a little bit about the history and who Sallie is, and apparently there's a lot of different Sallies, and whether it's there's demons there, or whether it's just some negative spirits or whatever. But welcome back, everybody, and we're going to get on with the show. Christina's got some more stuff to talk about. She's got some reviews of the Sallie House, and I want to say really quick, you listeners, please come on into chat, because if you've been to the Sallie House, we'd really like to see your comments. And also, if you've got any questions, we would love to address those questions. So with that being said, go take it away, Christina.
Okay, this review that I found was in October of 2015, and it said, "An experience I won't forget." I had seen about this house on sightings back in the 1990s when I was a teen. Then again on an episode of Ghost Adventures just recently this spring. So when it said self-guided tours for $10 on the site's website, my husband and I were like, yes, please. We rewatched the episode of GA the night before and thought, are we crazy? It was a day tour, so him, myself, and two others ventured off to Atchison. We walked in there, were people doing their thing. I was standing in the dining room listening to the guide give a brief bit of history. I started to feel lightheaded and a humming sensation in my body. I was like, I need to move away from here. Not scared, just weirded out. Didn't expect it. We went upstairs. I had a ghost app on my phone. It started saying names of people and would answer some of my questions, but not all. We turned on a flashlight and I told whatever was with us to turn it off. It did slowly. I assumed it was the battery. It felt very heavy up on the second floor, even when the windows were open. It was in the upper 60s. We went into the infamous basement where there is supposed to be a portal in the crawl space and where the demon or the entities live. My husband went over to the crawl space and was like, I don't believe you're real. I'm coming in. My ghost app started saying, stop, scared. We went back upstairs to the top floor, had dowsing rods courtesy of the city of Atchison. They were doing all kinds of active stuff. One in particular turned to my hand and my phone spelled out entity. My husband then started acting weird. He later said that he couldn't move. His mind was saying, leave this place, but he was numb and couldn't get up. He said also he felt guilty for taunting whatever it was in the basement, even though he is a skeptic. We had some more fun times. A man said something, growled at him. A lady said something, pulled her hair. When we left, the guide had the flashlight in her hand and when informed of what we told her about dimming, she replied with, I put fresh batteries in it before you guys got here. Then she turned it on and it was bright as can be. So I don't know what was real or it was in our heads. I do know there was something there and everyone else there would agree. Even the skeptics. For $10, it's more than a made-up haunted house. It's more fun than a made-up haunted house. And it makes you feel better. You can get some water from the church conveniently located a mile up the road. That was a good review, but then got another review that said a group of us went last fall and found this to be expensive, waste of money and time. It's an old house. Nothing is haunted. The local Chamber of Commerce charged us $150 to tour it. Save your money and go have a nice meal in town. So, I mean, there's just, and then another one said that every time I visited this house, I have captured EVPs that are Class A. I personally have never felt any evil or negativity. If you enjoy the paranormal, this is a must-visit place. So, I mean, those are just some of the reviews that I got out of it. It looks like most of the reviews are back in like 2015, 2016. Don't have a whole lot for the last couple of years. It's hit or miss. But like on the cost of it, like they were saying, it is $10 for the walkthrough, and then you can actually hunt for $100 per person up to 10 people overnight, and that starts with it's expensive.
$100 per person.
Per person up to 10 people,
Wow.
and then it starts at 3 p.m. with a walkthrough, and then they release the house to you. But there's up to 300 people going in that house at night or a day. So, I mean, you have a lot of people coming in and out of that place. And then you can investigate with Sean and Christine daily for $65 a person. And it's event runs from 6:30 to 9:30 and 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. So, I mean, personally, we decided we're going to do ours by ourselves. We don't want nobody to lead it, because the more people you get in there, the more it's going to be contaminated. And so that's why we decided that we would, we're just going to do it ourselves. So, I mean, I don't know what your guys' opinion is of that. But
How many people do you have going with you on the investigation?
6. That, well, include all together, there's going to be 6 people there. But we don't investigate in different rooms. We always investigate in the same room with all of us. And if we do investigate with like 2 or 3 of us, usually the others go outside, because especially in this location, it's not like you're walking into a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house. I mean, this house is a smaller home.
Exactly.
And so the more people you get in there, the more it's going to be contaminated.
Exactly. And where do you guys sleep when you do the overnight investigation?
They said to bring, you can't sleep on any of the beds, but you can bring air mattresses or whatever. Now we have 2 investigators that said, I am not sleeping in that house. And I said, I don't have a problem sleeping in that house. If I get tired, I'm taking a nap.
So they get in a room then?
No, you can sleep there. What it is if they
Well, I mean,
slept,
the ones who said
we
that
just
they're
have
not
to.
sleeping in the house.
Huh?
The ones who said they're not sleeping in the house. They're gonna sleep in they get a motel room?
Well, or a car, and that's something else. You can't have more than 3 vehicles there either, because it's still a residential area.
Mm-hmm.
And so they only allow 3 vehicles. They recommend 2, but they will allow 3.
Wow, so it's like a park and ride sort of
Yeah.
deal you got to do then. Well, that's good for everybody to know. I wouldn't have probably thought about that. So,
Well, Nikki said, that's me, because she's one of them that is not going to sleep there.
oh, Nikki, come on. Sleep in the car. That doesn't sound very comfy. Actually, I think it'd be creepier to sleep in the damn car, because there's that Native American spirit that's been seen there in the yard.
Right? He's just gonna run up there with you in the car seat.
You're gonna spook Nikki, and she's gonna sleep in the house.
I would give it a try, Nikki. I'd sleep in the house just the one time and see how it goes, and then you can make your decision after, like if you guys go back.
I'll get a toy to sleep with from the house room.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, shh, be quiet.
Yeah, I'll give her a toy to sleep with out of the child's room or 2.
Wow.
Put handprints on the windows, so when it kind of fogs up, the handprints will show up.
Like different size handprints.
Yeah.
She needs some teddy bears, because according to my research, that's what gets the most there. Teddy bears. Oh, you could really freak her out with the Boo Bear. The Boo Bear.
No, we're gonna do that to Will. We're gonna be like, set it by his head as soon as he dozes off. What's your name? Oh,
It's
I
gonna
feel a temperature change.
gonna say, "Can I sit in your lap?" Do you know the ABCs? A B C. We used that at the gold field. It was, oh God, it was creepier than any spirit I think I've ever dealt with. Well, Christina, I read a lot of reviews too, and there are a lot of bad ones
Yeah.
compared to good ones.
Well,
That's kind
you
of
know
just
what was really interesting about it, and doing all this research, a lot of the websites I that I went out to weren't updated since like 2005, 2007. So, after a while, I think it just kind of faded away. And you found that with the reviews and stuff, that they were kind of prominent during this little bit of section, then all of a sudden they started getting fewer and stuff. And it was all back during the time of the Sightings television show, Ghost Adventures, and UFO television and stuff. And I just find that really, really interesting.
yeah, especially with the Ghost Adventures, because I believe they went out there in 2017.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So they went out there just not too long ago.
Yeah. And I did watch
Okay.
that episode, and I'm going to be talking about their episode, and I think you guys are going to actually find it kind of fascinating. But I will make sure and put all the links to where you can watch their episode for free and all the other links that I'll have. But did you want to talk about anything else, Christina, before I get started?
No, go ahead.
Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to get started with my segment of the show, which was to research actual paranormal evidence. So that's what I did. And I did find some, but not a whole lot. So, Brian, do you want to start putting up my pictures? And then I did actually find some really good pictures, though. So I'm going to start with putting in some links here really quick. So
I just put your pictures on rotate.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So I'm going to start with some links here. So the first link I'm going to put into chat is from the very first Sightings show. And then I'm going to put in the second show, because there was actually 2 shows that I found, Sightings 1 and episode 2. So let me get that one in there really quick. And for those of you who have not seen the Sighting show, watch it. I mean, it's fascinating stuff. I can't tell you if it's made up and rehearsed, and I can't tell you about all that, but it is definitely fascinating, especially to watch shows from back then, because we're going all the way back to the 90s. So very fascinating. So the very first show on the Sallie House that I found was Sightings. And like I said, they had 2 shows as far as I could find. Just to give you a little synopsis really quick. So basically, a psychic goes in there when Deb and Tony were living there. And, because they were experiencing all of this paranormal activity. But let me first say that when Sightings first went in there, they didn't want to have their real names released. So they were under false names in the very beginning. So the psychic claims a little girl by the name of Sallie haunts the home and is causing the scratches that Tony was getting. You'll see those scratches in the pictures. There were two psychics who went in. There was a lady named Barbara, who was a friend of the family of Deb and Tony. And then there was also the renowned psychic, Peter James. So, former resident claims, and this is also, I found this really interesting. Former resident claims that her little girl had an imaginary friend named Sallie. So I found that fascinating. Records were found of Sallie, who died in 1905, and we've discussed this. But what I found interesting about the sighting show is that the narrator does not state if that Sallie died in the house or not. Psychic Peter James leads camera crews to an unmarked grave. According to historical maps of the plots, Sallie Isabel Hall was buried there, but narrator of the show does not state whether or not she was a child when she died. A little fishy, I think, especially because it's been proven that this Sallie Hall was an older Black lady. People start to yell demon, especially Tony. So sightings, they call in a priest who states he doesn't feel it's a demonic haunting, but a spirit trying to get attention. Deb and Tony finally move out, and a new family moves in and does sightings follows this new family who moves in, and they don't experience anything. It just, the whole house goes dead. So according to the show, experiences that were being experienced there: scratches with blood, cold spots. There are a lot of cold spots. Like I'm not just talking about like a little tiny shift in temperature, but when you're watching the show, it's like it's a really, like, you go from summer to winter, like in a heartbeat. Their dogs constantly crying. Things are burning in front of cameras. There was a rose that they talked about on the show, which was just sitting in a vase on the window. They show it throughout the show. You can see the rose, and it looks normal, a bud. And then suddenly people start to smell, the camera crew and people there start to smell something burning. And they found the rose, and it had been burned from the inside out, which I thought was really interesting. And then, of course, we've got Tony's dreams of the little girl, but he never did state the name Sallie. He was not the one who started the Sallie. It was the psychics. As far as footage goes from the sightings show, photos of free-flowing lights and shadows on several different rolls of film and cams, which you can see. Photo analysis expert said that the photos are unexplainable. Scratches captured on camera, which you guys can see, along with bleeding on camera. Now, Brian and Christina, what do you guys think about the photos of not just the bleeding, but also the different rolls of film and stuff?
You know, I've always heard, and I kind of questioned this also, that anytime that an investigator gets scratched, they always come in three, and it's supposedly a taunt for the Holy Trinity. It's quite interesting that Tony's scratches aren't in threes.
Mm-mm.
And they're all over the place.
Yeah.
And I've worked with cameras before, and if your platen isn't, if your film isn't sitting well on the platen, you're going to get distortion in your picture. So
Yeah, I've never seen any out of all the paranormal pictures that I've ever seen of scratches and stuff, I don't think I've ever seen anything worse, anything close to it. I mean, some of these pictures of these scratches, they're just everywhere, and there's just so many of them. So I mean, I don't know. I
And
really,
it's weird. I mean, I have seen scratches that sort of resemble these, um, and I don't want to say who, but after a hot shower and you reach back and you scratch your back and everything, you're going to wind up with red scratch marks, almost kind of blood blisterish like, which are some of what these kind of look like. I yeah, I don't want to say that he didn't have it, and I don't want to say that yeah, these are demonic scratches. Um, so
Well, what's interesting is that if you watch the 2 episodes of the sighting show, um, a lot of these scratches just appear while he's being interviewed.
Hmm.
And you can see the interviewer going, "Oh my God, you've got a scratch." I mean, he's been sitting there for like 10 minutes being interviewed, and then out of the blue, he gets a scratch and it just starts bleeding. Like, how does that happen?
and it was the film crew that said he got scratched, not him.
Well, okay, so like, for instance, he'd be sitting there being interviewed, right? And then the interviewer would notice, um, like a scratch just appear on him. He wouldn't have said anything. But in some interviews, he did say something. Like on some separate interviews, he'd be like, "Oh my God, I got a burning on my stomach." And so they'd lift up his shirt and then he'd have scratches and then they'd start bleeding.
Yeah,
So it just
but
depends,
it yeah, but even then, that doesn't mean it's demonic.
No, I mean, it doesn't mean it's demonic, but I mean, how is this happening? And then they've talked about it being a stigmata, but I mean, it's just bizarre. It's really bizarre, how this is happening and who's doing this and why just to him is kind of what I want to know. Why only him? I mean, there have been hundreds of investigators that have gone in, and even with like the camera crews with all the shows and everything, nobody gets physically attacked like this. Just Tony.
I don't. Well, yeah, but a lot of probably of the paranormal groups that's out there. I hadn't really asked much of any of them. I know the ones that I have on my Facebook. I don't know of hardly any of them that's even been to the Sallie's house.
Yeah, and I tried to find. I mean, that was my part of the research, was to find paranormal groups, and I'm going to talk about one in a minute. But there are not a lot of paranormal groups who have been there who have posted their footage and evidence on YouTube or anything. So it was hard to find stuff. But let's move on. So that was the sighting show. And my questions we've already kind of discussed. How did the little girl Sallie enter the picture? Between her hall at the cemetery? How do bleeding scratches appear on Tony every time he's on camera? Just things like that to ask yourself. But there was a team who did go there, called Haunted History, and they had a very good documentary. It was like 2 hours long. And I'm going to go ahead and post their link really quick so you guys can watch it. One sec. Okay, so that's that. A little synopsis about this documentary I found interesting. So they interviewed the tour guide, who's been doing tours there for like super long time. She states that after doing a lot of research on the house, she doesn't know how a little girl named Sallie came to be. However, she did state that there were a lot of funerals held at the home at the time the doctor lived there, and that some of them were children. She also said that it could be the land that is haunted and not the house. She said she was the one who said that she had seen a native spirit in the yard. Some of the experiences that went on in this documentary was like the tour guide claimed that she had furniture thrown at her, and she actually said by a demon. So there we go again, demon again.
Yeah.
The tour guide claimed that a male evil spirit takes on different forms. So she basically feels that this evil spirit or demon is taking on the form of a little girl, and also other forms as well, like women and stuff. The tour guide claims that holy water will evaporate in the house. So that's interesting. Tourist claims include like a burning feeling, and then having their hair pulled. Batteries and cans getting drained, and then an investigator from Haunted History said that he saw an apparition of a Civil War man. Now, as far as footage from Haunted History's investigation, which they were there overnight, they actually did not get anything. Not an EVP, nothing. Just the personal experience of seeing a Civil War man.
A soldier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which I think we did talk about earlier. Somebody else, yeah. So that was Haunted History. You guys have any questions about that or any comments about that?
Thank you for joining us tonight, Nikki. Sorry you have to work.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki, for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. You better earn that $100 because we're going in July.
I hope you guys are enjoying these pictures, though, because I find them really fascinating. Now, the next one I want to talk about, and the last one I want to talk about, is Ghost Adventures. Now, I'm going to post the link on how to watch the show for free, real quick.
Are you cheating Ghost Adventures out of money?
Hey, I just found it. Just like I found that one that you were talking about, the Sallie House movie yesterday. I found that for free too. So I watched it last night. Well, I guess we could talk about that a little bit too after I'm done with Ghost Adventures. But so I did post. If you want to watch the Ghost Adventures episode, which I really highly recommend that you do, I just put the link in chat. So a little synopsis. So they interviewed the same tour guide as Haunted History, and she states that after Deb and Tony moved out, a Satan worshiper moved in and performed animal sacrifices. What I found was interesting is that when interviewed, Deb and Tony said that they wouldn't step foot back in the house, but Zach Bagans must have convinced them to, because they did. So they were actually part of some of the investigation. So after the investigating, Tony cried and talks about how many times he was scratched by Sallie the demon. That's what he said, quote unquote, Sallie the demon, and how she is so powerful that She almost made him want to slit his wife's throat a few times. So Ghost Adventures then, and this is kind of corny part of the show, but Ghost Adventures then has a psychic come in. She actually looks to be like she's 12. I thought that was a little odd.
What, the psychic or the girl?
The psychic.
The psychic looked like she was 12?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. And
That is odd.
Yeah, it is kind of odd. The entire investigation, she claims, the psychic girl, to pick up on a little girl who just so happens to look exactly like the picture that Tony drew when he lived in the house. So experiences that they had, personal experiences. Investigators claim that they're scratched, though I couldn't see anything. So I didn't even bother taking a snapshot of it. I believe, here's the guy, not Aaron, but the other guy, Billy.
Yeah.
Billy, I believe, is the sound guy.
I think it was Billy who claimed that he had gotten scratched, but when they put the camera up to his arm, I couldn't really see anything. So, but then suddenly, when they go down into the basement, Tony starts complaining that he feels a burning sensation on the back of his neck. And then the psychic suddenly faints. And then Zach gets possessed as usual. And then then they all go running upstairs. And then then the psychic, the girl leaves because she can't handle it no more. And then they look at Tony, the back of Tony's neck. And during the slideshow that you've been playing, Brian, you can see the welt. He's actually got a huge welt on the back of his neck. Now, when I took a snapshot of this welt, it almost looked to me like a scar, not a burnt welt, like something he's had for years. It doesn't look red or inflamed.
Yeah, it kind of looks like psoriasis.
Yeah, something he's had for a while, but I don't know.
I'm not a doctor. It's only my opinion.
I was wondering.
Well, what do you think, Christina, about that welt? I mean, to me, if it was something new, it would be red and look irritated.
I'm thinking eczema or
or a scar. I mean, to me, it looks like a scar.
And then in one of the pictures of the scratches, I've noticed, like Brian said, it's like, have you ever scratched yourself when you got out of the shower in the swimming pool when you was wet? Because they're going to show up more prominently, if your body's wet or something. And that one of the pictures of his chest, looks like he just went, back and forth with his hands. There's a little bit of blood drips, but who's not? He didn't dig in a little deeper.
Yeah, I've done that in the shower.
Yeah.
Well, what do you chatters think about these pictures? I mean, do you think they're legit? Do you think that the show just set all this up for ratings, or?
What do you think, HRJ Paranormal, about the photos?
You guys gotta watch the sightings and episodes, because it's just bizarre how they have it to where they just show up during an interview with him.
Right. Okay, I will make a comment about the scratches. Yes, the scratches, they look real. I won't deny that. Now, are they caused by an evil spirit, an evil entity, a demon? I don't know. One thing that I did find out, what I found really interesting, and this just might be me putting things together, and I might upset a few people if I say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's really funny because I watched the sightings episodes, I watched the Ghost Adventures episodes, and the first one they used fake names because they didn't want to get bombarded by people trying to get into the house or bug them about this and start calling them crazy and stuff. And when they moved out, they said they wanted nothing to do with that house anymore. But it's really interesting that they go on and eventually they get in with the Kansas Paranormal Group. They become expert or experienced ghost hunters, and they're co-founders for the official SallieHouse.com site. I just think it's really interesting. If they didn't want anything to do with this house, why did they write a book about it? Why are they doing all these interviews? Why are they co-founders to a paranormal site dealing with the house?
Well, I agree with you, and that's why I stated when I first started talking about the Ghost Adventures episode is how they first said they didn't want to go in the house, but then they ended up going in the house anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah, and that this is just me. I just this is my opinion. It's just I feel something not 100% above board on this. It's just a little too bizarre for me.
I agree, but outside of Deb and Tony, I mean, I do think that there's something going on inside the house, and that leads me to my last part of what I found as far as footage goes, evidence. So when Ghost Adventures was there, they of course got the photo of the welt on Tony's neck. They did have a lot of audio of loud, unexplainable banging and knocking and footsteps. But the most compelling part of the show was when a stuffed animal moves on camera. And unless they had a wire or a string or something connected to this thing, it doesn't just move back and forth. It actually wobbles around in a circle like somebody is moving it. An invisible person is moving this stuffed animal. And I really wish we had the ability to play that clip right now, because when I watched it and I had a few other people watch it, it was really, really compelling and amazing that happened. So, and the fact that it goes almost, so the teddy bear wobbles so much that almost looks like it's going to fall on the ground or go back on the ground, but it doesn't. So it's definitely like somebody is got hands on it and is moving it around. So I definitely recommend that you guys watch that part of the show. It's really compelling. As far as EVPs go on Ghost Adventures, they got one EVP while they were there, and it was when Zach went into the quote-unquote portal in the basement, in the big hole in the wall. And there was, I would say it's probably a class B of a woman talking. However, Christina, I was also reading reviews like you did, and I read that several people have stated that it's very hard to do audio when you go there because the houses are so close to one another that you can hear neighbors talking, you can, all that. So whether this is a legit EVP or what, you can't really tell. But Teddy Bear is amazing.
Yeah, and that explains the Frank Finney thing, because evidently he had an EVP of sitting in a circle. And it makes me wonder, with the bear turning in a circle, that's just odd to me. That, I mean, it all will just correlate to make sense right there with that part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you guys gotta watch that. I mean, just watch it. I mean, I know that there have been other shows like Ghost Hunters who have gotten busted for faking evidence and stuff, and that's always a question in my mind when I see things like this. But if they weren't faking it and it's real, that's a very amazing piece of evidence right there.
Oh, definitely.
And they tried to debunk it. I mean, they really did. And there's just no way to debunk that kind of thing happening. So that basically concludes my part of the show, other than I did watch that movie, the Sallie House. What was it called, Brian?
Gateway to the Paranormal.
Yeah.
Sallie House, Gateway to the Paranormal.
And you can look that up in YouTube and watch it for free. If you go to, it's on Amazon Prime, but then you got to pay. But you can watch it for free on YouTube, and it's more like, it's not really a movie. It's kind of like a low budget documentary, but it's very interesting. They do have a lot of really good information and stuff on the show. The only thing I didn't really like is that they're going along with the whole Sallie thing about how she died during the operation. They're going along with that whole thing.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Everybody's been here. Everybody hears a story of that it's a little girl named Sallie. She died at the house, and it always kind of makes me wonder if something is told over and over and over for years and years and years and years, and everyone believes it or wants to believe it, when they go there to investigate, it seems like they can actually manifest it themselves.
Yeah, and what's that theory called? Remember what that theory is called by the parapsychologist?
No, I don't remember. I wish I wish Kat was in chat and everything.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember too. But
yeah, it's that whole collective thing. If you go in and you're expecting to pick up EVPs from a little girl and everything, or see a little girl, can't you eventually manifest that yourself? Same thing with the scratches.
I think we can, because our mind is that powerful that I really believe that we can do those things. And it's like the power of suggestion, right? And I mean, we can move things with our minds. So why couldn't we do that? Right?
True.
So
Yeah.
I believe that, but I also just believe that rumors get spread really easily and fast. And
Yeah,
we can look at the Goldfield Hotel, for example. The whole story with Elizabeth and the baby. It's the same exact thing here with Sallie. There is no proof that there was ever an Elizabeth.
It's just like the miners' lodge in Gold Hill. There was no proof of a Rosie.
Mm-mm.
The only thing is the rooms smell like roses every so often. And I guess you have to really look at all the haunted locations and everything, and try to do your research and find out if these individuals truly did exist, or are they all made up.
And I think that we pretty much did a good job of doing that tonight with regarding the Sallie House. I mean,
Well, I did actually find a Sally that did live in the house.
what?
Yeah, back in December of 1948, Dick Mize and his family moved into 508 North 2nd Street. They lived in the house for a short time, and one of their children's name was Sarah Sallie Margaret Mize.
Wow.
But she's still alive.
Maybe we could contact her.
But yeah, I think that as far as the Sallie House goes, guys, because we got to wrap up soon before we do our announcements. Just my advice would be, and to you as well, Christina, because you're going there soon during the summer. Going there with an open mind and just being kind of like naked, not thinking about Sallie, not thinking about any of that. Just go in there, because I really do honestly think that there are spirits there, and there might not be a Sallie there. There might be somebody pretending to be Sallie, because spirits are smart.
Mhm.
They can pretend. If there's a spirit there and all these people are coming in going, Sallie, Sallie, they could be pretending to be Sallie, or a little girl or whatever. So my advice would be just go in there, pretend you never heard the name Sallie, and see what you get when you do it that way. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go in there with an open mind. I'm not going in naked.
I was going to suggest that you might want to wear clothes, because that's a little awkward for the rest of your investigators.
Well, that
you guys know what I mean.
But then again, you won't be threatening to the spirits.
Well, I'm actually going to do the Singapore theory when I go, but I haven't decided which era I want to go in as.
What do you chatters think? What should she be dressed as when she goes to the Sallie House?
I'm thinking like Victorian type dress, just not real, because it wasn't a ritzy neighborhood, but it was like a step down. So, yeah.
I think that would be a good choice.
And then what I'll do is when we go, we'll do live feeds and all that good stuff, and then we'll kind of correlate it with this show, and then get it out there and see what evidence we get, if we get any,
Yeah.
Well, I hope you do get some, though.
Yeah, I wish you the best of luck on doing the investigation there. Hope you get some really good stuff.
Well,
my advice would be
for one of y'all to show up, or both.
Well, I wish I could.
Me too.
But as far as advice, yeah, go in with an open mind.
Going naked.
No, I'm not saying going naked. Because I mean, if you go live, that's really embarrassing, and Facebook won't let you do that. But no, I mean, just go in with an open mind, and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get evidence, you get evidence. If you don't, you know what? you got that experience of saying, hey, you know what? I've been there. I did this. And I want to say thank you to all of our chatters. I noticed that a lot of our chatters are kind of leaving and stuff.
Well, we got some announcements, so don't leave, guys.
Yeah.
Don't leave.
But I just want to say, I just wanted to say again, everything, all this information that we found is readily available out on the internet. We are not any way, shape, or form claiming that this evidence is ours. It is not ours. It belongs to the sites that we found. And I do have a statement saying I would like to give, or the mystery gang would like to give credit to the following sites for this information.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for putting that together. I think that's really important.
That and this is only our opinions, and I'm sure that you've seen that my opinion varies from Susie's opinion, from Christina's opinion, and that's one thing that makes us great is we have our own opinions, and just go out, do the research, and form your own opinion. Don't take the internet as factual. Do your research, and the best way to do it is to go out and visit these locations and experience for yourself.
Have fun.
Yeah, have a great time with it and stuff.
Yeah, have a great time.
We have so much fun on our investigations. We go in serious, but then you can laugh and cut up, and of course, ask Audrey questions, and then ask
silly
questions, and then you just it's just fun. Have fun.
Yeah, I mean, have fun. Don't make this a job.
No, by no means.
Okay, guys. Well, let's wrap this up. So our announcements and Facebook group shouts really quick. 5/10 is our next show. So May, God, I can't believe it's already going to be May. Is Bill to Bone, guys. He is super, super prominent in Australia, and his group is Australian Paranormal Society. Now, I don't know a whole lot about him because I haven't gotten to talk to him a whole lot, but what I do know is that he is such a sweetheart. So I very much look forward to talking to him on May 10th. And another Aussie. Gotta love those accents.
Gotta love them.
They're just so amazing. So that's our next show. I want to tell you guys, please join our Haunting the Afterlife group page. And I'm going to put the link in really quick in case you guys are not a part of it yet. One sec. You want to join it so that way you can stay up to so that way you can follow our events and our live videos and stay up to date on all of our guests and everything. So here's the link to that. And then also team announcements. What are our team announcements?
I have one. It's a newer one. This is why I want to do it because, and I've talked to you and Brian about this stuff too, so I know you guys are going to be agreeance on it. Paranormal Bully Busters. Not only bullying in the paranormal, but in the everyday world with all the bullying going on, it's a new group. And what they do is they take paranormal groups and you're put into regions, and your team and your group is basically gonna go out into your community and fight against bullying. If it's kids in grade school, kids in high school, any community, anybody. But the paranormal bully busters definitely go like them. Get your team in there, get involved in it. It's a big issue right now. So
It is. It is. It really is.
get everybody involved, and hopefully we can put an effort into fixing the bullying issues, around the world. So
That would be nice. I just posted that link in chat, and I'm going to check them out and become a member as well. So thank you for that. My Facebook group shout is going to actually go to, and it's not really a Facebook group, but it's a page, and it's Bill to Bones page, Australian Paranormal Society. So that way you guys can check him out before the show, and get to know what they're up to, get to know them a little bit before the show. Let me put that in there. So that's that. Christina, does your team have anything coming up soon?
Yeah, we do in about a month, but we're not openly saying yet what it's going to be. Our next show, I'll announce it.
Okay, well, I'm going to post your link, your page. There's Christina's page in there. Hopefully that'll show up. It's telling me it won't. Why does your why does your page never show up in chat?
I don't know.
It's www.facebook.com/Old Fort Paranormal Research / I don't know why it's not showing up in chat. As far as the mystery game goes, I don't really have any announcements at this time, team announcements, or anything coming up. We do have a major investigation coming up in May, but we'll talk about that later. So anyways, guys, I just hope you had a good time during our show. I hope you learned a lot. And I hope you had a lot of fun. And I'm going to go ahead and say light and love and peace, and see you on May 10th.